What's up, guys? I got a very special video for you all here today. I have an interview with the winner of the Chongqing Regional Open. This crazy guy flew all the way to China to go compete in their circuit and ended up coming out a champion. George, welcome, and thanks for coming on. I am very excited to get to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to do this Riftbound thing, so I'm excited to talk to Riftbound fans because I've not been able to talk to too many when I was in China, you know? It was difficult.
Well, you know, what's funny is you and I have known each other for quite a long time. I mentioned this on the co-streams as well, but for those who don't know who you are, George, I'd love for you to be able to describe your kind of competitive history and what you're all about for competing in games.
When I was younger, I never really full sent games because I was doing school and work and stuff. And then recently in my early 30s, I started competing at games more full time. I played 1 year of Pokemon Unite where my team was really good for a while. I decided I want to take it a little more casually, not do the esports thing, maybe do TCG or something like that. So I met a bunch of the Pokemon TCG players doing that. I played 1 year of Pokemon TCG where I competed at Worlds in Yokohama, Japan. I wasn't really enjoying the gameplay of Pokemon too much, so we moved on. And Lorcana was coming out, so I played a year of Lorcana as well. Well, about 6 months. Where I qualified for nationals. And I won a couple tournaments in that game, but I think I'm best known for no-showing my nationals invite because I didn't like the meta. Riftbound's coming out, and that's kind of the cross-section between the two things that I've done with my life up to this point. League of Legends, which is kind of the esports side, and TCGs. So I decided to try this one out.
What possessed you to just absolutely send it, fly to China, no guarantee that you'd be able to compete? Because if I remember correctly, you did not get in through the lottery. You had to waitlist every single one that you got in. So what really drove you and, at the end of the day, possessed you to make this trip happen and go do it?
The way the lotteries worked is I actually had to get my visa before I would know about the lotteries. And it just kept becoming sunk cost or whatever, right? I went to New York, I suffered through getting a visa, 2 trips to the city. I had my visa, and then the rejections for the early lottery started coming in. And it's oh my God, do I still go? And I figured I'd enjoy playing the independent tournaments and stuff. I didn't lottery in. I heard there'd be a last minute lottery. And I guess I figured that not many people would be crazy enough to show up for the last minute lotteries, but they were. There was a lot of people there. And so I got lucky at the first one, but what possessed me to go through with it? I don't know. I just had prepped so much, and I have a Discord server full of competitive TCG players, mostly Lorcana guys, but guys with success in other games as well. I was doing well in testing against these good players, and I was man, I feel I have a good shot of winning something or doing really well and starting out the game strong. Kind of a prequel to the Western release. And I'd never been to China, and I've been all over the world. So I was just whatever, I'll go. And then, of course, it was a great success and I had a good time.
Jump to your prep then, because you brought it up. So how did your prep look? Because I know you mentioned you tested with a lot of the friends from Lorcana. And then I know that you ended up locked in on Kai'Sa ahead of time, which I think a lot of us recognized was going to be one of the best decks. But I also know that you kind of got to this spot where you were forced to play Kai'Sa for the rest of the time as well, because there really was not a chance for you to ever even attempt to swap. So how did we get to Kai'Sa in the first place? And then how did that overall testing look? Were there a lot of other decks that you even considered?
So I was a Kai'Sa enthusiast before I think someone won a Western tournament with Kai'Sa. It was completely off the radar before that. People were saying the deck was bad. And I was there's no way this is bad. The deck seems so good, especially after the Falling Star reveal. I think at that point I was I'm probably going to play Kai'Sa for the first tournament. This card seems so good for making your opponent play the game. You're able to reset the board once or twice and make them make new decisions. And in card games, I'm always seem to be drawn to the deck that kind of drags your opponent into deep water every game, makes them play the game, makes them make hard decisions. I thought Kai'Sa seemed the good mid-range, kind of Jund, and those are always good, especially if there's a skill gap. So that's how I got there on the deck choice. And it was just testing well as well. We're looking for what doesn't fold to Yi or Victor in my group. Because we knew Victor was going to stay popular even if he wasn't BDIF or whatever. And that was correct for the Chinese tournament.
Yeah,
so it was a
100%.
good read. But yeah, I was just testing with very good players. Everyone from my cousin in real life who doesn't play card games to national champions and world champions in various card games are my testing group. And everybody played their part in helping me prepare before I arrived in China. And you're correct to hit on the fact that once I arrived in China, the first weekend was the first open event. So whatever deck I brought, there was no changing before that. I quickly realized that I wasn't going to be able to get the experience to switch decks. I maybe could have played Yi. My top 8 did the first one with Kai'Sa. should I really switch after top 8 if I thought the deck was still viable? And I think Kai'Sa became slowly like a worse choice, the level of investment, and I felt like I could win the Kai'Sa mirror a lot, and I just decided to stay locked into the deck. My weekly practice, I mean, I was going to locals, but it was just 4 rounds best of 1. Despite trying to make connections, you know, people in China work, of course, just like everywhere else. So that like I couldn't get together with anybody for like enough testing, and TTS over VPN was impossible.
It's horrible.
Yeah, so it was just like, it's pretty much impossible for me to switch decks. So it was just about playing the best Kai'Sa list I could after I arrived in China.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And I want to, I guess, take it from there and go kind of holistically on your experience in China. And, you know, you were there for a very long time. You got to see a bunch of different cities. I mean, what are some of the favorite memories of just being in China?
One of my big memories is walking into the first event and seeing like the production value of the first event and being like, oh man, I'm really doing this. Like, you know, I might end up on stage, and just seeing the amount of people, the sheer amount of people in the waiting area for the first event. That's a big memory. Of course, winning is a great memory.
Sure. Yeah.
these are all game related. Yeah. I mean, I got lost a couple times. That stuff was scary. I wouldn't call it a good memory, but it's a funny memory. Like, it was harmless. Like, nothing bad happened. So in retrospect, it's a funny memory or a good memory. Like being in these crazy situations and, you know, life being so interesting. Surviving my first local over there as well. I was like, are people going to be like really rude to me or whatever? And everyone was pretty kind. So the relief, I guess, realizing I was going to be able to play after making such a big commitment to go there. From Guangzhou on, so I top 8'd the first one, and they put you on stage. And of course, I'm like the only foreigner on stage. People recognized me from that point on at locals. And I had people asking me for photos. And then after the win in Chongqing, every event, I was taking dozens of photos with Chinese Riftbound players that wanted and I was doing interviews with them, and it is nothing but fun memories. We went to Hotpot after. I was closest to the people that I met in Guangzhou. So those guys took me out in Chongqing as well, and we went to Hotpot. And
oh, that's awesome. I love to hear it. I had some experiences like that in Japan when I went for stuff back in the day during my pro career. And it's always just magical to be able to have the locals kind of show you their cities and their because you have this like shared passion for good games, right? And from there, it just like you don't need anything else because everybody can always communicate through that. You mentioned the first event and kind of that relief of getting in, but that first event versus like maybe the rest of the events from there, how difficult was it actually to play the games of Riftbound with the language barrier, or did it end up being a bit easier?
I think the games were only tense in Top Cut, or like maybe the win and end round. Nobody really was too hostile or anything about the language barrier prior to maybe Top Cut. I think it actually got worse. At the first event, everyone was kind of just excited to be there, and they were acknowledging the fact that they were beginners as well. And so there was like a level of understanding between everyone. But by the event that I won, the whole Top Cut was like a rules fiasco, and it kind of left me not wanting to play the final event, the Hangzhou event, just because I was inconveniencing the staff, and I had like a bad experience with angle shooting in top 64. Someone said they passed their turn. Someone passed, and then like they waited for me to draw my card. When I drew my card, they called the judge over and said they didn't pass. That's not representative of how I was treated by the Chinese players in general, but there's literally no counterplay for that if you don't speak Chinese. So like, you know, that was, there were issues, but I wouldn't say that it was an issue like with the Chinese community or anything like that. It's just like what you expect at any TCG tournament when you're at that type of disadvantage. You
felt like you were inconveniencing the staff. I feel like that kind of comes to a head when you're playing the final, you're on stream, you know, they have to get this extra guy on stage to try and translate for you as well. And then we saw how the judges like to get involved when it comes to the stream matches. And I just want to ask about your experience playing on stream to kind of break down how it felt, some of the struggles, especially because I already heard from Huge, our mutual friend, about how hard it was for even him to play on stream. And so now we're adding in this layer of the language barrier. There's
a couple issues on stage that I'm willing to talk about without like dragging the judges too much. One, the one issue is that the white noise was too loud in the ears. There's literally nothing. There's no way you were going to hear the crowd anyway in the room. And the white noise was just blasting, absolutely blasting. And then the second loudest thing in my ears was the Chinese judges. And then the third loudest thing in my ears was my translator, which is, you know, probably the worst order possible. My translator also just like would forget that he needed to translate, but I don't think that like he's a translator by trade or whatever. So they would sometimes be saying stuff to me, and then I would look at him like, "Can you please tell me what they said?" I would say the judges are too hands-on, and I think that was the feedback from the Chinese community as well. I don't think that has to do with the language barrier, but it was certainly exacerbated by the language barrier. These guys are talking a lot of times when they don't need to, when the situation would resolve itself normally. 20 to 25% of the time, they were saying things that were wrong. When a judge tells you something that's wrong in another language and it has to be translated back and forth like roughly like 8 times, they say something, it's translated, I say something back, it's translated to them, then they have to say something back. It was really, really tough. The obelisk of power miss was because I set up an off stream and I didn't know. I was told to start, set up my board, and then I was told to reset, to put it back. And then I did it 2 more times. And the third time, they're like, start your turn or whatever. And that's what the judge translated to me, like, start your turn. So I just, after 2 times and you're on stage, I just started my turn in the typical way you start a turn. I missed my obelisk. When you do something like what's kind of natural in a normal game, like go to untap all your stuff all at once, they would like direct you maybe in a way that was unnecessary during those periods. I remember the other major mistrigger was Grove, the draw 1 battlefield at the start of the turn. And I was like, did he pass? And then my guy doesn't like translate for me to the judges. And they're not letting my opponent pass with gestures, like for some reason. So I'm like, did he pass? And then like I have to ask like 3 times if the guy passed. And then it gets translated to me, translated back. And the command that comes to me is like, untap your runes or whatever, right? So I untap my runes and then like listening to the judge. And then I'm like, because I don't want to like disobey the orders or whatever, right? And so I go on tap and then I'm like, oh, if I missed my grove by untapping when they told me to. It's less bad when there's no language barrier, but everyone was having problems.
Yeah.
The judges should be less hands-on, but I do think they're just trying to do what they were told to do. So I don't have any like personal issue with that. They did try to like persuade me to let my opponent have the Targons he missed, which was a little weird after they made me miss all my triggers. And I was already kind of upset at the situation. I wasn't like upset at the people, but I really
the situation is frustrating.
So, yeah, it was a frustrating situation to be in. So like they were like speaking to me and I didn't even go through my translator. Like they were like, yeah, Targons. And I'm like, no, he missed. And they're like, yeah, he Targons or whatever. And I'm like, no, he missed. Like, because they made me play game 1 with 2 mana at the 4, right? So this guy's not getting his Targons. Like, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I think it's fair.
We're playing one way or the other, right? Like I was down for either way. Either I get my obelisk rune or he doesn't get his Targons, right?
Yeah, when we watched, I think we were saying the same thing. Where it's like, I'm pretty sure George lets him have that if he got his obelisk in game 1. Like I think he wouldn't care if it was.
Yeah, I'm like, no, he missed. I wasn't even waiting for the translate. I was just at that point. If they gave him the Targons, that's probably the point where I go from like begrudgingly accepting my situation where it's really difficult to like actually being upset on stage.
Yeah.
And they didn't, of course. They upheld like the competitive integrity and they caused him to miss his trigger that he also missed. So no complaints there.
The big thing, it seemed like they were asked to like really make sure the stream matches looked like they were following the rules to the letter every time. Like the ABCD setup every single time. Like I feel like that's something that doesn't always necessarily need to be enforced so strictly, the order, but it was, and because it's all the same, like when you're just doing the start. And I think that was one of the things that just led to so many of those judge calls. On stream, it's crazy, but then you win, right? You win this tournament, and you mentioned the locals' reaction already of kind of taking photos with you, getting you to sign stuff later, but I want to talk about that moment. Like when you finally realized that you were going to win, that you had taken this risk and flown all the way across the world to play this tournament, and it was really going to pay off. And there was a certain point in game 3 where it was locked up. Did you feel it during that game, or were you so kind of in that moment that it wasn't until that final point was scored that you really like knew?
There's this part where in game 1, I have the Mundo in my hand and the game looks doomed, to be honest. But I have like this Mundo sitting in my hand and I'm like, he played a charm early game and he killed a Kaisa or something. The green Mundo's not great against green because they just charm him out of the base and the battlefield rather, and then you lose the 8th point that way. And usually Mundo's like, he's for maintaining your lead, right? When you already have a lead. So I'm like, oh, I have this crap Mundo in my hand, but it was the Zon game, so I have a big discard, I have a fat discard pile. I'm thinking like my only win con is Mundo, and the guy burns a charm, like a second charm of the game. And I'm like, wait a second, I'm gonna win. Like I got so happy. And so like the moment the second charm gets played, I'm just thinking about like, how do I get my Mundo into a base one time so I can win? And this is the 2 mana to 4 mana game. So he burns the second charm. I'm like, oh my God, I'm actually going to win this missed obelisk trigger game if I can get Mundo in a base. He plays the second charm, big smile on my face when he plays the second charm on stream. I'm like so happy. And then I get the Mundo in the base. And I'm like, oh, I can't believe I just won that game. And at this point, I think like I just beat my opponent 2 mana to 4. Like that's better than winning the regular way. He's probably so discouraged. Then unfortunately game 2 was hopeless. Like game 2, I had no chance in game 2. That game was horrible. But I'm like, oh, I get my Targon's game, and like I really was believing in this. Like if things go well on Targon's peak, like you're just gonna run the Yi out of cards. Typically it's their game where they're out of like before in the old meta at least. They don't have their card draw battlefield for that game. You can really, by trading like Voidseeker with Unyielding and stuff like that, you can economy them. You know, you Voidseeker, and they have to Unyielding it with your Targon's mana. You can do it, right? So you're not like losing tempo. And they can burn it. They usually have to burn like Unyielding or Defy or something. And so they're paying power. In case of Unyielding, you're going plus a card as well. You're able to trade them down a lot. So going into the Targon's peak game, I had a lot of confidence. My opponent was sending a lot of mana. I remember doing like charms and stuff like that. I used to be really sad when my stuff got charmed, but as the meta developed more and I learned more about the game, I was like, okay, this power cost is a lot. Like you can really weigh what options your opponent has based on his total mana and take advantage of it a lot in that matchup. So I slowly became more confident as that game went on. I don't think I remember exactly how it went, but it looked really bad for him, if I remember correctly. I sort of realized I was going to win. For some reason, like they thought I was going to win. So they started telling me the questions. Like I'm in the middle of the set and like the translator who's not talking to me, like when I need him sometimes. And again, I'm not mad at this guy at all. It's like I win game 1 and he's like, okay, so question 1 on stage is, are you going to get hot pot after the tournament? I'm serious, or something like that. And I'm like, bro, I'm in the middle of the tournament. Like, I'm in the finals. Like, we don't need to talk about this right now. He's like, they're going to ask you about the Chongqing hot pot. I'm like, there's no way this is necessary to tell you right now, right? So then, like, I start winning game 3. Like, I'm actually going to win. And I was like, shit, which question is the hot pot question? I don't remember. Because I'm getting worried. Yeah. I'm going to be on stage and they're going to ask me, like, did you make any friends in China? And I'm going to be like, I'm going for hot pot. so like, I started thinking, I look at some point during my opponent's like getting ready to concede or whatever happened. I don't remember. And I'm looking at the translator. I'm like, which question is the hot pot question? So, I mean, that's the moment where it set in for me, where I start the interview questions that I couldn't have cared less about like 15 minutes before. I'm like, oh crap, I'm about to have to represent myself on stage. And I just figured when I go up there, the people in China have been really kind to me. I'm just going to, shout outs to the communities that kind of adopted me while I was here. And then I forgot to thank all my friends at home, which is absolutely tragic. So, It
is what it is. I think it's even funnier that he's prepping you for these questions when the stage host speaks English, because I recognized her as a talent that's done, I think she's done some TFT, she's done a lot of other stuff where she does multilingual stuff.
They told me that she doesn't speak English.
No, she speaks phenomenal English. She speaks great English.
They told me she doesn't speak English. So like, this is, by the way, during the finals that they're doing this to me, that they're like prepping me for the interview. And I'm like, I get on stage, she speaks English, and I'm like, oh my God, bro. Like, I'm exhausted. My back hurts. I went for a massage the night before and the guy bruised me up. So I'm like, I'm feeling the fatigue. And then the lady speaks English. She's like, oh, this is going to be a lot easier than I thought. I mean, it didn't feel real until like later in the night, I guess. And that's how it always goes. I've won tournaments before, not like official tournaments. So that's why I was so excited about this particular win. But I've won large TCG tournaments. It never feels like you won immediately when you win. After going home, and I think after seeing people at subsequent tournaments where everyone was so excited, that started to set in that I actually achieved my goal in China, which is more than I expected for sure.
You mentioned you forgot to shout out the friends at home, which, unfortunate, but you've been able to thank them since for sure. I know you've had nothing but good things to say about your prep group. I also wanted to talk about, the Chinese community was very supportive of you, but also just this Western community Discord the entire time is following your journey and saying words of encouragement. How did it feel to kind of have almost the whole world outside of China cheering you on for these tournaments? A couple hundred, maybe 1,000 people that are actually actively cheering you on through these tournaments.
Yeah, that felt great. I think it made the highs higher and the lows lower. I wouldn't go like if I could play that tournament again, same meta, I'd probably bring the same 40. So maybe different side deck cards, but yeah, I was really happy with my deck and I was doing well. And I missed I'm playing Victor, like the good Victor player in top 16 or something. And I play Kaisa because it's my only play and it gets cold. And it felt like the whole Discord's Kaisa got cold instead of just mine.
Yeah.
You know? Like I was like, oh no, we've let everybody down. We shuffled badly or something, and we're doomed. And I guess that's representative of how it felt. It felt like the whole Western community's Kaisa got called a week that turn because I felt really like I was letting everyone down. But somehow I ended up coming back in that game. Yeah, those moments there was a lot. It felt like there was more at stake because so many people were following. I think if I was just kind of like silently in China by myself, I would have felt less pressure, but also like less pride in the accomplishment. So it was really nice having everyone back me up.
I wanted to move on to the final event because, you know, you played 3 out of 4. You made day 2 on all of them, 2 top 8s, 1 win, right? And then when it comes to Hangzhou, you ended up not playing. I don't remember if you didn't get in or you didn't try to get in. I remember we were talking about it and you were on the fence on whether or not you wanted to play. But I know that you got to spend some time there not playing the primary bracket, but still at the event. And I was curious, what was it like? Was it there just a lot of cool things to do, or was it a lot of people coming up and taking pictures because they recognize you from winning Chongqing, or how was that event being the one that you didn't actually compete in the main bracket?
I would have liked to have played. I missed the lottery. You know, I already had my invite for nationals locked in and stuff like that, so it wasn't much better to miss the last one right after winning. If I lost finals and I wanted to run back and I missed the lottery, I'd be really sad. The event was great. I was doing interviews with Chinese content creators and taking pictures with everybody, and people were coming up to me and they're like using their best English to try to tell me about their Kaisa ideas and their deck and stuff like that. You know, I'm just trying to be like gracious and discuss things with people, even though the communication is really hard. But that's nice. It's heartwarming. One thing I'll say is learning Chinese was so useless, besides for showing the effort that I tried, because everyone's English is better than my Chinese. I was disappointed in the meta. I've been open about that. Watching the turn the meta took between like even like Ramp against Kaisa is like a decent. The game's okay. It's really Yi favored, and it's not the best matchup in Riftbound by a lot. I was disappointed to see the deck that won and stuff like that. Compared to like how good the gameplay was at Chongqing, and that just happens in card games. Sometimes you get the golden meta, right, and it's only there for an instant, and then it's gone.
So and then we have a bunch of Aurora. And then we get what happened now. Yeah.
Hopefully that changes. I know some guys in the Chinese channel were saying that the Aurora meta passed already, but I'm in all the WeChat groups and everyone is just crying about Aurora, so there's no way. But I mean, I wouldn't want it to be that way, of course. The event was great. The last venue was the worst venue. It wasn't as impressive visually. Apparently there's a fight at the event. That's crazy.
Yeah, we talked about that recently. I don't know how much you heard about it, but it was basically a guy picked up a chair and threatened the judge because of a call that he didn't like.
That's crazy. Both the head judges are huge, so I understand why someone would. What was it? I played the city challenge and I bubbled 9th. I hit Aurora MF and I lost early and I bubbled 9th place. But that was enough. It gave me enough points to be rank 1 in China.
Exactly.
I'm glad I played that. The Chinese TCG community seems to have like some kind of like inferiority complex with regards to like the tournaments are huge and the community is huge, but they're like, oh yes, TCGs are not popular in China relative to mobile games or something like that. They're always like saying that stuff and like being self-deprecating, but the community was large and it was great and everyone was like really positive and supportive and I had a fun time.
Yeah, you brought up the self-deprecating thing. I thought that was really interesting when I was first hearing things from you about how a lot of the players there were like looking at Western TTS tournaments because they didn't feel like their scene and TCGs was very good. And then I'm watching these tournaments, I'm like, no, the top players in this game are insanely good and they're adapting their decks, and it didn't really seem like that much of a difference. So I think it's weird that they have this inferiority complex because I think there's a lot of talent that's going to be coming out of China for Riftbound.
There's definitely this impression that the West was ahead that was kind of reinforced by the errors that are happening on stream. And I just caution anybody not to judge the Chinese scene by what was going on stream because it was impossible to play on stream. No offense to the judges, of course, but you can look at the stream games and be like, oh, we're better than China. That's not what's going on there. somehow the Discord had me convinced that we were going to be like so ahead, and then I started playing the tournament. I was like, why do I not have 2 returns in my deck? Like, these guys are ahead of us. Fortunately for Chongqing, I locked in the triple Noxus Hopeful build, which was really important for that tournament, and like that has such great synergy with return as well, because you can always replay that card for like more might than its than its energy cost. So like, even though it's not like a card with an on-play effect, you're just repeatedly getting the overvalue Legion effect out of it, right? By replaying it. So there's a lot of synergy there. And glad I locked that one in. I'm glad I stopped letting the Western perspective influence my deck list choices too much. For example, Sprite Mother is an incredibly overhyped card in the West. Like, I don't understand why it was like this, but even my testing group was being influenced by the server in the TTS tournaments. They're like, oh, we need 3 Sprite Mother. And I swear I could have won in Guangzhou if I just had a better list. Like, I could have won 2 tournaments. My deck list in the first tournament was, I was too concerned about set. I was too concerned about like so much random stuff. If I just same 40'd one of the other top 8 Kaisa lists, I think I could have won the tournament. So I think I was behind. That that doesn't say I was behind, right? If I think I could have won with someone else's deck, then I was behind.
Definitely behind. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, okay. You mentioned it. I was going to bring it up. Rank 1 in China. This is because of that city challenge that you got to tack on in the end. Is this kind of just feel like a funny thing, or do you take some great pride in being number 1 with this extra city challenge? It's really fun to say that you're rank 1 in China for sure.
I have a folder on my desktop where every time I'm rank 1 in a game, there's a picture of it. So no, that's fake. but no, I love the fact that I'm rank 1, of course. Yeah, it's great. Like it counts, and it actually doesn't count if anyone passes me while I'm not there as well. I looked at the rules, and if you pass me while I can't compete, that's not fair, right? So I'm rank 1 perma until I return.
Rank 1 forever until you go back.
Until I go back to China. Yep.
Billy Chat designated you the Ghost of Chongqing, and while there are some questionable reasons to make that nickname, it does undeniably go hard as fuck. So I am curious, are you going to keep that designation, or are you going to hope it kind of fades away? And also, did anyone in person call you that to your face?
No. Nobody was calling. I think like Billy, there's like some level of anonymity or whatever. And in Chinese culture in general, and I'm not some kind of authority on this, but I think there's like a major lack of anonymity in other aspects of Chinese culture. And so I think people enjoy it a little more, being able to just like kind of shit post or whatever in the chat. I don't think anyone's trying to offend me with that nickname. It's a cool nickname. I'm not going to call myself that. It's absolutely ridiculous.
That would be unhinged. I agree. Yeah.
Ooh, no. I don't think that's reasonable, but it's cool. Like, stuff like that makes me happy. Seeing people be so passionate to come up with crap like that. I'm glad that people were positive towards me. There was some kind of like really negative video. Apparently I missed a recycle on Darius, because I blame the judges, to be honest.
It very much felt like a judge's issue. Yeah.
Yeah. They like interrupted me to see if it was my second card of the turn, and it had to be translated like 4 times. I played my Darius ready. And then I forgot to put the ring back. I was on 11 anyway. I don't think it mattered, but there was like a guy that made like a video, like Western cheater in China. And like all my boys that I met in China, like dogpiled the guy, and he took it down, which is, I appreciate it, because in general, everyone was so kind to me. And I started to get like messages this one day, and they were like, oh, there's this negative video about you. And before I could even look at it, this guy was encouraged to take it down. And I mean, you can't ask for more than that from a community that's welcoming you as an outsider. So it's really appreciated.
Oh, that's incredibly sweet. All right. Well, before I let you go, is there anything left that you'd like to say to the fans, the community, the people that you got to meet in China? Anything that you'd like to share at all?
Yeah, of course. Shout out to the Chinese community. They're too kind, more than you deserve, showing up, not being able to speak the language. Shout out to my testing group, like Rob Serp, staying up till 5, 6 in the morning, playing games with me. I mean, my Lorcana friends in general. I'm kind of like a Lorcana trader, you know. A lot of people invested a lot of time in me in that game, and I didn't even show up to nationals. So to be embraced the way I am by the Lorcana community, I mean, you have Zach Bivens posting about me on Twitter. Like so many people supporting my run in China, so many Lorcana players weighing in. Just shout out to those guys. It's really, really nice to see that, to be supported by a community that I haven't always put my best foot forward in. Thanks to everybody that was supportive. Thanks to the community Discord for the way they followed the run, like you mentioned earlier. It felt great to be able to be like, oh, 4-1, and then everyone would celebrate, right, in the chat. you can't ask for more than that from those guys either. Just feel really blessed to be in the situation to be able to compete and not worry about money or things like that too. So really a lucky guy, and I just appreciate everyone making it possible.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, George. And thank you all for watching this interview. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, ask any additional questions you might have for George. I'll see if I can get some answers for you from him, and I'll drop them in the chat as well. And we'll have all of George's links in the description. So thank you all, and we'll see you for the next one.